World of Warcraft has never really been about loot. Chasing your next pair of Mithril underpants or a sword of 1,000 truths is just the hook. The story is the glue. And if you've been here since 2004, as we have, you've watched Azeroth burn, heal, shatter, heal again, literally die, go to the afterlife, and somehow you've still joined me in complaining about class balance. So before the Midnight expansion rolls in, here is a state of slay for Azeroth. The greatest hits, the emotional damage.
For 100,000 years, I have planned for this moment.
We begin with old hatreds. Vanilla WoW, a continuing, absolutely awesome tale of greenskins v humies. Night Elves, still annoyed about everything. The Undead, trying to prove they're not completely gutless, and way more than a goth phase. The Horde and Alliance were not philosophical rivals here. They were neighbours with swords. Then Ragnaros black-rocked up, Onyxia the Dark Dragon started cosplaying politicians, and somewhere in Silithus, a very large bug problem was brewing. Basically, Azeroth was fragile, but intact. Then, the Burning Crusade kicked down the Dark Portal and reminded us that this whole outlandish mess started with demons. Illidan Stormrage, part tragic anti-hero, part shirtless gym motivation, claimed Outland. Kael'thas lost the plot. The Burning Legion loomed properly for the first time. We figured Illidan was the big bad, and fell for that misdirect. He wasn't. Dude was just the warm-up act. In Wrath of the Lich King, WoW stopped being just an MMO for us. It seized the genre crown and became myth. Frostmourne enthusiast Sir Menethil, or as we called him, the Arthas formerly known as Prince, sat upon the frozen throne and waited. The continent of Northrend was bleak, operatic and personal. We chased him through Dragonblight and Icecrown, watched Bolvar Fordragon take the helm, and learned that sometimes the only way to win is to become the jailer. Subtle foreshadowing, that. Next, Cataclysm blew up the map, literally. Not to drag on here, but Deathwing really did tear through Azeroth like a patch note written in anger. Zones were remade, the world reshaped, and we were reminded that the dragon aspects weren't just flavor text. Sub-level, the old gods stirred beneath it all, whispering war Lovecraftian stuff that had become very relevant later on.
And all will burn beneath the shadow of my wings.
With a light-hearted tone and daily questing aplenty, the mists of Pandaria rolled in. Think a hidden continent and a horde escalation that was, ironically, anything but black and white, due to Garrosh Hellscream sparking civil war by deciding subtlety was for cowards without spirit.
The world will hear of this. Yes, I'm counting on it.
Spooking of spirit, the Shah floated forward here as manifestations of negative emotions because apparently Azeroth runs on therapy metaphors. And by the siege of Orgrimmar, the Horde had to depose its own war chief.
You are not worthy of your father's legacy.
Internal politics and 14 boss raids can be messy, but many of us were up to the task. And the tusks of Manaroth. You gotta love that transmog. In an interesting twist, Warlords of Draenor took a hard left into time travel. Alternate Draenor, different Grommash, same bad decisions. Gul'dan, however, stayed consistently awful, like he was WoW's Biff Tannen. That mattered because this butthead's actions reopened the door for what Blizzard calls the Third Invasion.
Reject this gift.
The Legion expansion was payoff. The titular Burning Legion returned in force. Varian Rin got himself eviscerated. Vol'jin copped an invulginary redundancy as well. Sylvanas Windrunner became war chief and immediately started making choices. Illidan came back, and this time we understood him. We all bought a ticket to the Legion region, aka Argus, fought alongside some cosmic world-shaping titans, and finally ended Sargeras' crusade. Not neatly. Hot-headed bastard stabbed the planet on his way out with God's own letter opener. And that sword in Silithus? Still there, mate. Still a problem. Next, the Battle of Azeroth was the war we were promised back in 2004. But uglier. Old God N'Zoth manipulated events from the shadows, because of course he did. And like some neighbourhood bully, Sylvanas trashed the Night Elves' super cool treehouse, Teldrassil. The Alliance na'ad and retaliated. It's here that we learn of the unobtainium called Azerite, about the cost of faction pride, and about how quickly morally grey characters can become morally charcoal. Because Sylvanas shattered the helm of domination and tore open the sky. Which brings us to the afterlife. Shadowlands was ambitious. Azeroth's heroes literally died and joined the Choir Invisible. We all met the jailer, the actual jailer this time, and learned that old mate Zaval had been pulling strings since forever. Uther, Arthas, Sylvanas, all reckoned with legacy. Sylvanas' story bent toward atonement. The cosmic scale widened. Death was not the end. It was just a loading screen, my friends. Ironically, Dragonflight grounded things again. Back to Azeroth, back to winged lizards. The dragon aspects regained their power, the Dragon Isles reopened, and ancient threats like the Primal Incarnates challenged Titan influence. It was all about renewal, about legacy, about who gets to shape the future of this world.
That war is over, Eritocron!
Notice the theme. Now, dear travellers, we arrive at the more recent arc, the War Within, first chapter of the World Soul saga. And this is where Midnight's shadow really stretches. The surface war between Horde and Alliance has cooled into something pragmatic. Leaders like Anduin Wrynn and Thrall carry scars. And beneath the oceans of Azeroth, at least one ancient and angry thing stirs, my friends. Like an old man planning to return soup in a deli. The Void is no longer background radiation. It has a face, a name, and a body that is no longer that of a fancy letter opener. Xal'atath. Originally a whispering blade, a sentient shiv with unpleasant opinions. Over time, revealed to be something far older. Possibly a fragment of an old god, possibly something even stranger. She has always spoken in half-truths and prophecies, the kind that sound cool until they ruin your weekend. In the War Within, she stepped fully into the light, or rather, the absence of it. She's manipulative, patient, cued in a long game that makes the Legion look impulsive.
Perhaps this can keep you occupied.
Which then brings us to the Windrunners, those top-shelf elf sisters doing it for themselves. Illyria Windrunner took a different path during the Legion's crusade, while her sisters Sylvanas and Varisa walked more conventional roads, and in Sylvanas' case a catastrophically unconventional one. Illyria embraced the Void. Mentored by Locust Walker, she learned to control the Void in such a way as to be, devoid of corruption, mostly. She's proof that the light and the void are not clean opposites, but volatile roommates. You should also know about her husband, Turalyon, who's the counterpoint, a paladin of the light, a veteran of the original alliance. He fought alongside the armies of the light for 1,000 years in the twisting nether. He believes in order, in righteousness, in the light's guidance. He's not naive, but he is unwavering. Their son, Eretor, stands between those legacies, light and void at the family dinner table. The tension is not abstract lore, it's thematic groundwork, because Midnight is circling that duality hard. Then there are the machinations of the Blood Elves to consider, an emerging Belf insurance plan with very confusing fine print. Lady Liadrin once renounced the light after it abandoned her people during the Scourge's invasion, circa Warcraft 3. She reclaimed it, not as a blind faith, but as a chosen strength. Lorthamar Theron rebuilt Quel'Thalas from ruin, steering the Cinderai through addiction, betrayal, and near extinction. Their Silvermoon City has always sat on a fault line. Arcane power, fell corruption, light devotion, and now, the encroaching void. If you're spotting a pattern here, good. Light, void, choice, corruption, redemption. Azeroth has moved on from orc versus human to cosmic philosophy with kick-ass swords. The Midnight expansion is clearly not emerging from nowhere. It's the next pressure point. The Void has been whispering since vanilla. The old gods never really shut up. Xalatath is no longer content to comment from the inventory screen. Illyria's struggle is no longer niche side lore. The Blood Elves' relationship with the light is no longer stable. WoW's story has always escalated by peeling back a layer. First factions, then demons, then undead kings, then dragons, then titans, then death itself. Now, it seems somebody's about to unleash a bloody big sewing machine on the very fabric of reality. And through it all, the World of Warcraft endures. Stormwind still stands. Orgrimmar still argues. We all still queue. If you are stepping back into Midnight after a break, here's what matters. Azeroth is wounded, but resilient. The light is not purely benevolent. The void is not purely chaotic. Old heroes are older. New threats are intimate. And somewhere, Xalatath is smiling as if she knows something you don't. She probably does. And we cannot wait to see where this expansion is gonna go next.
Let the way be opened to my prize.